I'm just going to hit start, and we're going to see what happens. So,
All right. I'm ready when you are.
Hello, everyone. It's recording right now. Hello, everyone. This is Your Time Starts Now, a Taskmaster podcast. I'm
Hey,
Joseph.
hey. It's my podcast, and I introduce it, Joseph.
Sure thing, Greg.
That's Emerson to you. Naughty boy, you're in timeout.
Uh-huh.
You in the corner?
No, because I'm an American, and therefore I don't
sit in the corner now.
Boston Tea Party. We want that.
All right, now that you're in the corner, hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Your Time Starts Now, a Taskmaster podcast. If you're listening to this just after the absolute shit show, that was last week's episode, in which two very experienced guys from two very different countries came together and just fucking did whatever. We appreciate you sticking around. Hopefully we can only get better from there. You can come back from the corner. You can come back from the corner now because I need your help.
I never left. I'm just sitting here making Revolutionary War jokes while covering my mic. Anyways, so we go into episode 2. Episode 2 is called The Pie Whisperer. Joining us again as the inimitable cast of this series, we have Tim Key, supposedly a poet, Ramesh Ranganathan, the angriest man alive, Roshin Kanati, an absolute disaster, the Last Leg's very own Josh Widdicombe, and the world's most ancient man, Frank Skinner.
Oh, God.
They are joined...
Ironically, the jokes about Frank being old never get old.
No, they don't. We are also joined, of course, by Alex Horn, the Taskmaster's assistant, and Greg Davies, the Taskmaster himself. As always, the show starts with a prize task. This week, the contestants had to bring in their most impressive item, at which point we see some things that aren't impressive and some things that are. And we're going to go through them in the order that I have them written down. I'm not sure if that's the order they are presented in.
Also, what we're going to do is we're going to say what we would have brought in for each prize task at the end.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Also, in between this episode and the last episode, we've decided to take a bit more of an alternative approach, so we'll be alternating between covering the tasks.
Yes, so I'm going to do the prize task, Emerson's going to do the next task, and then I'll do the task after that, and so on. You know how this works. You are an adult with ears. So
anyone with a brain in their head can work this out. It's very simple. And we're also moving at a much better pace. We're 3 minutes and about 10 seconds in, and we're now right onto the prize task. We won't fuss around anymore. Joe, hit us with it.
So Tim brought in for his thing a participant's medal for the 2009 London Marathon. Now, this is genuinely impressive to Greg because, well, if you look at Tim does not look like the kind of person who would run a marathon, and to be honest, that's entirely true. But, you know, I am going to level with you guys. You don't have to run the marathon to get the participation medal. You just have to complete the marathon. You could walk the marathon, and that's something that you could do.
Can I give my thoughts on this? Just real quick. See, this first series was recorded in 2015, and Tim's medal is from 2009. That's a 6-year gap, and even now it's even longer at nearly 12 years. But I feel like the fact that it's, even at the time of recording, it was a little outdated.
I mean,
as I'm saying this out now, it can be a bit hypocritical because I mean, like when an athlete wins a race, before the period that they've retired, and that's still impressive. But a marathon,
it would be impressive if it was like a placed medal. Like if Tim had said, I won 3rd place in the London Marathon, that's impressive.
Yeah,
Tim's medal says, I completed a 26.2 km event at any speed conceivable, which is not impressive.
Marathons are in miles, not kilometers.
Is however long there's 26s involved in it. I know that.
I mean, in the borough, I live in, because like New York City, London has boroughs, even though there's many more boroughs in London.
Yeah, there's 32 in London, and there's 6 in New York.
I thought there was 5. I thought the 6th one was like an inside joke.
No, as much as New Yorkers will try and say that Staten Island isn't real, it is.
No, the 5 boroughs are, off the top of my head, the 5 boroughs are Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, and Staten Island.
Shit, my mother's from New York, and if she ever hears this, I'm never going to hear the end of it. I genuinely thought there were 6 for a moment.
Joe, an audience, you can't see this, but I'm doing the Fortnite L dance.
I don't know what that is. I don't play Fortnite.
Oh, well then you're actually very lucky. Anyway, yeah, I feel like a participation medal is sort of like, I don't know how I feel about it. I personally would have.
It's impressive that he did it, but it's not that impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that it, obviously he Tim says he ran the London Marathon, but considering his reputation in the series so far, he could have
gotten a cab.
And considering how he'll behave throughout the rest of the series, he might have paid someone to change the definition of ran to any speed that involves you moving your legs.
Yep. Although, on the level of unimpressive bullshit, nothing comes close to... That has nothing on what Ramesh brought, which is a
good segue
that has the Arsenal logo on it. And he claims that this is from, I believe, the 2001 championship.
Yeah, championship
thing,
double.
Whatever.
The Arsenal cap from the 2001 to 2 Arsenal double, basically. Now, it's not tennis, even though it has the word double in it.
No, it's soccer. I don't know much about association football in the United Kingdom, but I do know that Arsenal is a very good team.
Yeah, they're one of the most popular teams in the country. In the time we recorded the first episode and the second episode, I still know fuck all about football, but I do know that the word double in this context does not mean tennis. But anyway, tell how
Ramesh claims that the hat was thrown to him from the team bus as it drove through the jubilant crowds of Arsenal supporters I think they're in Woolwich, because they used to be the Woolwich Wanderers, because I learned that from a Jeff Marshall video, and it was thrown to him from the bus, and it's obviously worn by someone on the team, to which the obvious response is, and I cannot believe that it never occurred to him in the 14 years of owning that stupid hat, that it might have been thrown from the other side of the bus, thus meaning that it's just some random person's sweaty Arsenal hat that he's been wearing for 15 years. And Ramesh, when he's informed of this, it's clear that he's never thought of this, because his face just turns to stone, and you can see him dying on the inside.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Ramesh has like one default emotion, and that is silent fury. But it's very obvious. Because, I mean, it's hard to kind of describe Ramesh's face, because the bottom half of his face is hidden. Well, was hidden before he shaved it all off and looked completely alien to everyone. His beard basically obscured the whole bottom half of his face.
But you can see in what little of his face is emoting that he is furious at this.
Also, you can tell in Ramesh's like silent fury resting face that he used to be a teacher. You could tell he was one of those bullshit teachers that stood for no nonsense. No bullshit teachers, excuse me, that just stood for no nonsense. And I love how it's Josh of all people that mentions it, because obviously, as we know, Josh Widdicombe, at least for the first couple episodes of the series, actually the whole series in general, he's sort of like portrayed as the anti-Frank Skinner, young and inexperienced. But
he's on that in a second, that it could have come from over the top of the bus. There's no hesitation whatsoever.
Yeah, we learn from this moment right here that Josh is not someone to be underestimated, sorry, because he's quick-witted and he's easy to pick out things, which is
Yeah.
good when it comes to later in the series. But also Josh's commitment to getting not only himself higher, but other people down. And we'll see mixture of both, especially in a task in a 1 or 2 episodes time, in which we will see the
It's the
level, the
British way.
extent Josh Whittaker will go to win a task.
Oh yeah. No, and then following Ramesh's poor attempt, we have Rasheen coming in with actually a really good effort for once, where she brings in a 550 pound, and for those American listeners, pound sterling is the English currency, not a unit of weight in this instance, where it is a 550 pound
What's that?
bottle
About
of
seven?
champagne.
Is that about somewhere in the realm of 700 to 750 American dollars?
Hold on, I'm looking. And
We are professionals, people.
$746.07 at current exchange rates. If you want me to account for 5 years worth of inflation, you can stick it
Sorry.
up your ass.
I just want to say we've only been recording for about 10 minutes, maybe a
Yeah,
little bit
we're
longer,
going.
and it already feels like we've improved so much.
We have improved very much, and that's legitimately impressive. Just that they made a bottle, because this bottle's like 4 feet tall at the inside.
Yeah,
But
it's got
the
it's got 8 regular sized bottles of champagne's
yeah,
worth of champagne in it.
I believe this is called a magnum of champagne, but I'm not sure. My personal astonishment at this is undercut a little bit because in the United States we have a store called Costco, which is basically where you can buy anything and everything provided that it's in industrial quantities. And they don't have bottles that big, but they definitely have bottles the length of my forearm or my entire arm in some instances for right around $100.
I
So
mean, yeah, your forearm is basically an average champagne bottle could be that side. Also on size, sorry, and
well,
also
I'm
on
really tall, so
so
I have
yes,
longer
so
arms.
am I. So am I.
Yeah,
Also on the topic of Costco, Costco does exist in the UK, but it's in very limited quantities.
yeah.
I think I've seen about 2 in my lifetime, and one of them was on a university campus I went to visit for a day out.
Why is there a Costco on a university campus? That's not. I what? It's a warehouse. How does that work?
Oh no, Costco was like a little corner shop or something, just like it's sort of
That
a
is
place that.
someone stealing their IP then, because Costco
Oh wait, hold on.
is
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of something else entirely.
Costco is a warehouse store that when I
Oh
say
shit!
warehouse,
Shit! I'm thinking of. Sorry, the place I'm thinking of is called Cost Cutter.
okay, yeah,
Oh
I'm gonna put an
shit!
image in the Discord chat of what a Costco it looks like on the inside, and you're gonna understand
Okay.
exactly why a gigantic bottle of champagne is not as
Oh,
shocking as it might
apologies
be.
for that. Apologies for that mix-up. But I will say, when I did
Yeah,
go to Seattle 2 years ago, we did go to a Costco
yeah.
once.
Costco is very
I remember
large.
now. Am I right in thinking
Yeah.
the logo is the company's name in a red
Yes.
and the letters have a blue outline? Is that what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of?
That's exactly correct. Red and
Also,
blue.
we
Yeah.
should stress we're not sponsored by Costco or Cost Cutter.
Costco. Costco, if you want to sponsor us, please reach out to us at ytsnpod@gmail.com. He's
Yeah,
no
what he
shot
said.
there. But
Well,
anyways, yeah,
I won't be able to promote Costco because I'll have to spend at least £5,000 on a flight to go and try it out.
I mean you could fly to. They opened one in Iceland recently. I know that, so you could pay I don't know £200 or something and fly there.
All right. Before we go on a tangent, let's. Oh, I have one more
Yes.
thing to add about Roisin's champagne
Yeah.
bottle. So obviously, each of the contestants has their little things that Greg jokes about, and Roisin's is that she's someone who likes big things, big food things.
Mhm.
I think in one of her introductions, like how, this is actually the only season where Greg says like a brief, snappy sentence before introducing the competitors. In every series after this, he just says their names. He just rattles off their names.
Yeah, there's a lot of minor differences in how this show is presented versus in later seasons.
Yeah,
Like,
you can tell you can very much tell it's a first season because a lot of
yeah,
things are
like
trial and error.
one thing that I'm going to point out now that we'll get to in the last episode of this season is, have you noticed that there's no giant bust of Greg's head?
Yeah, and that's funny because when we cover Champion of Champions in 5 series time. In case you haven't seen it, the winner of this series is the only one to win a trophy that is not Greg's head in every subsequent season.
Yeah.
Also, back
Which will,
to Roshin's champagne bottle. It's just very much a Roshin thing that she'd have this. It's alcohol,
yeah.
and it's big.
Yeah, that is a very Rasheen thing to do, and in this instance, it plays out very well. Most of the time, when she does something like this, it doesn't play out very well. But moving on from
Also, one final point. This is, without giving away too much, this is a good episode for Roshin.
yeah, this is a good episode for her. And
All
then
right,
moving
now,
on from
finally, after
Rosh-
God knows how long, we're on to
oh
Josh.
no, we have two more. Yeah, we have two more people to go after this. So we have Josh, who brings in the trophy from Pointless, which I understand that it's a British game show, but it's not one that I've seen too often. So if we could get a 30-second explainer.
All right, so Pointless is like, obviously you have to. Sorry, you've just put me on the spot here. Basically, Pointless is a show people normally either come on in teams. I think it's teams. And what they'll do is they'll give a category, and what they've got to do is say a very obscure answer in that category. So, for instance, the category might be countries in Europe. An obscure answer would probably be Estonia or something. Like, it's not one of the first answers you think about. Like, one of the first answers you think about will probably be like Germany, France, or Spain. And the more obscure you'll get, your answer is measured on a scale of 0 to 100 in terms of points. And the closer to 0 it is, the more pointless it is. And your aim is to get as few points as possible.
Okay.
It's kind of like golf, where the lower your score, the better you're doing.
Yeah. And for the record, the most obscure country is probably San Marino or Vatican City, just based on side.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're doing the Royal Order of Malta, which is a country that has no actual land territory.
Or the former, I think this is... former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia.
It's North Macedonia.
But the country's abbreviated to FYROM.
Yeah, no. They changed it. They changed it late last year.
Oh shit! You're right.
Because the Greeks have been yelling at them about it for 20 years. Geopolitics with Joe and Emerson.
I'm British. I'm supposed to be the smart one of the two of us.
Sure, it's the accent makes you sound smart.
I'm really very average in terms of my IQ. I'm good with trivia though. Anyway, finally, also
first of all, before we get that, Josh's trophy is undercut just a little bit by the fact that it's celebrity pointless, but considering the stock of British panel comedians are somewhat more intelligent than other people than you might expect, because you've got people like Dara O'Brien and Johnny Vegas who are incredibly intelligent, even though they do dick jokes. But so he's probably in good company there, and he won it. So unlike Tim, who just participated. But moving on from there, we've got Frank Skinner, who
I'm excited to give my thoughts on this one after you've explained it.
We are going to have to explain to our American audience what a Christmas cracker is, which I had to learn this because of a James May program from a couple of years ago.
Can I explain this as well?
Why don't you take the reins? Because this is your culture, not mine.
Okay, so I should stress, Christmas cracker is not a racial slur. contrary
I
to what
hadn't considered that. Holy shit.
we won't get into how it could be a racial slur because we want to. Obviously, they're swearing in this, but we want to try and keep it somewhat civil. But basically, it's like a tube made of cardboard, and at either end is two more wraps of cardboard, sort of in the shape of crowns themselves. And what you're supposed to do is you and someone else are supposed to pull opposite ends of the cracker, and it'll go bang. And the winner is the person who gets the middle section of the cracker. And inside the middle section, there's a lot of there's some little prizes and stuff. If more expensive crackers will have more useful prizes in them. So I mean, they'll have like a paper crown, which is what Frank will be talking about. But also, cheaper crackers will tend to have like really cheap little plastic toys. More expensive ones will have like maybe a small mirror or some nail clippers or something. But they'll always come with a really bad joke. And for instance, one of my favorite cracker jokes. Tell me if you know this one, okay, Joseph?
I guarantee you I might.
Even if you haven't, play along with it, okay?
Uh-huh.
This is a cracker joke right here, everyone. What do you get if you eat Christmas decorations?
I don't know what this one is. I anticipated the groaner. What is it?
Tinselitis.
Oh, that's so bad because you have to know what tonsillitis is to get that. Oh, that's so terrible. Wow.
That comes from one of my favorite Christmas movies, but that's a story for another day.
That's so awful. But anyways, speaking of not great stuff, moving on from this, Frank claims that the only hat he ever looks good in is the crown that comes in a Christmas cracker, which it's a cheap little piece of paper, which, as an aside, I don't think so. I think that if Frank found a proper fedora, like an old Indiana Jones style leather fedora, he'd look amazing in it because all he needs is a trench coat to look like a noir detective then. But he claims that he only looks good in the Christmas crown. And so he had but because they're paper and made shittily, that
very
they don't
flimsy.
work very well. So he had someone make him a leather Christmas crown that he wears all the time, and it's a thing. Greg views this thing much more highly than I do because it's not impressive. That it's just weird. This would be good for most unusual item, not most impressive item.
Well, Greg clearly finds it impressive enough to continue to downgrade the celebrity of Romesh's hat, which he continued. Sorry, I mean, Romesh's hat is just continually
mocked throughout the entire sequence.
Oh no, it's more of a joke throughout the episode, but and there's another running joke throughout the episode which we'll establish in the next task. But I'll say specifically that there's one thing Greg says regarding Romesh's. I'm sorry, I'm laughing just thinking about it. But Josh starts getting really rude. I'm sorry, I can't take this seriously. But Josh is getting in a fucking hissy fit because his pointless celebrity has been delegated to fourth place. I think that's the right word. And Romesh speaks up about how Josh is talking back to Alex and Greg, and he says he's being very rude. And then Greg says, "Oh, maybe I'll move him down a couple places and move you up." And then Romesh is like, "I'm sorry, I don't know why I find this as funny as I do." You're probably just sitting on the other end, like you've got.
I am, because I'm trying to remember what this line is, and I genuinely have no idea what you're laughing about.
Well, but basically, Romesh is calls out Josh for talking. I'm basically repeating that. Romesh calls out Josh for back talking to Greg and Alex, and he's being very rude. And Greg notices Romesh make this comment. And he says, "Yeah, maybe I'll move his trophy down even more and move you up." And Romesh starts to go like, "Oh, yeah, you should do that." And Greg like, nah, I'm just joking, your hat is shit. And Ramesh just buries his face in his hands. It's the first time throughout the whole episode that Ramesh is just like, he knows there's no way out of it. He's like, while his hat's been like bashed to high hell and back so far, it's just he's just got that same look of like, I cannot believe you just said that. It's like, you know, like that really old viral video of the guy who gets, you probably have, I hope you've seen it, but there's this really old viral video of a guy who gets punched by his friend, and then he says, "Oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this."
I don't think, is that an old video? I thought
Yeah,
that
I
was
think
like
it's a more popular. I don't know if it's a British video that was uploaded to YouTube in 2007, I think.
Oh my god, that is old. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah,
it's really funny.
I feel like Ramesh's mood until Greg says, "I'm just kidding, it's shit," has just been that internally.
Yeah.
On the outside,
Yeah, no.
on the outside, probably not, but on the inside, he's just like, "Oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this."
No, and so the scores for this first round are Tim Key gets first place because it is genuinely impressive to Greg that Tim ran a marathon.
Fantastic
Frank's
five for Tim.
Frank gets second with his crown. Roshin gets third with the wine. Josh gets fourth because it was always celebrity pointless. And Ramesh gets fifth because we have to give him at least 1 point. Now, if you want to do the music, I can tell you what I did for this one.
Yeah, please do.
No, don't we have a theme tune because we're too cheap for royalty-free music? For me.
Taskmaster Joe.
There it is.
I think the theme tune, the jingle for that has changed every time we've done it.
Yes, it has.
Should we make that a running joke? Should we make that a running joke that it's a different jingle every time?
I figured it was already, but
we can make it a running joke.
I gave Josh first place because winning on a game show, regardless of whether it's against a bunch of brain-dead celebrities, is still very impressive.
Fair enough.
Then I give Roshin second place because it is an impressive amount of wine. Tim, because I give third, because even if it's not winning the marathon, it's still impressive that he did it. It's just not that impressive.
Yeah.
Frank, I just genuinely didn't care about the hat. It's not impressive. It's weird. And so I give him fourth. And then Ramesh's stupid hat gets fifth place like it deserves. And with this over, we move on to the first pre-recorded task, which before you begin, I would like to point out that this task specifically is singled out by Alex Horn in later interviews from where he says that this is something that he wouldn't do again because it involves harassing members of the public.
Oh yeah, I felt like this was definitely a flawed task. But before we do that, we didn't talk about what we would bring in for most impressive item, straight off the top of our heads.
I don't know what I would bring in for probably my degree for my MBA because I have an MBA. Because that's impressive that I did that.
Yeah, that's cool. I rate that. I wouldn't know what I bring in because I feel like these two prize tasks from the first two episodes, Most Unusual and Most Impressive, are actually quite similar. Because something's rarity and unusuality can add to how impressive it is. But what I bring in, I'd probably have to ask permission from my dad because this is his. It's a glass bottle of Coca-Cola that's in his office, and it's never been opened. He's had it for before I was born, this glass bottle of Coke, and it's never ever been opened. Ever.
Is it like really old and has like cocaine in it, or is this like from the 80s or something?
I'd say it was definitely made before 2000. The year 2000. I wouldn't call it impressive. It'd work better for Most Unusual, I think. I don't.
Yeah, If you had an unopened bottle of UK market Dasani, that would be impressive.
I mean, God knows what my family has. I mean, we've got a huge library of books that we somehow, for some reason, own that we never read. But I couldn't bring in a whole library.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not sure. You'd have to sort of play that one by ear. Like I'd have to think through my head as like something that I have achieved that'd be because that's the other thing is I'd also have to be willing to give it up in case I lost, which I'm not willing to do for most of these.
Also, I just want to make note of this. The prize, as we progress through the show as a whole, the prize tasks get worse. As in, like, the subjects. So we go from, say, like. So we go from very basic prize tasks, like most unusual or most impressive item, to some of the Series 10 prize tasks, which I won't, for spoiler reasons, say here, but if you have seen the 10th series, you'll know what I'm talking about. How the prize tasks have really fallen, just in terms of, like, they've become too specific in a sense.
We'll have to see about that because I haven't gotten all the way through to season 10 yet. I figured once we started watching this, I figured I'd stop watching anything else and just wait until we got to it. But I'm interested to see that because I think that the specificity of those could actually be really fun. But we'll have to investigate.
I might change my mind, but at the moment we can see how drastically the prize tasks have changed so drastically over time. But anyway,
Okay.
after God knows how much babbling,
It's been only half an hour.
Yeah, we're on better track than we were. You can definitely tell that I feel like we've improved a lot since.
I feel like we have too.
God knows where we'll be by episode 6. Even if we don't make it to episode 6, this will be a big improvement. Anyway, so do you want me to take this next task?
Yeah.
So this is the first VT task, and it's very simple. The Fantastic Five have been thrown into a shopping center, which I desperately tried to Google the name of, but couldn't find it, even though I'm sure I've been to it before. And the task is to simply high five a 55-year-old, fastest wins. And yeah, I'm not as prepared as you. You can tell that, but obviously we know that this is a very difficult task because you've just got to go straight up to people and ask them their age, basically harassing the public. Hence why there were very few tasks where they interacted with people after this.
I'd like to point out that I would do much better at this task than anyone else because of my American ability to just talk to anyone. I imagine this is basically British hell.
Yeah, I can tell you, no British person ever wants to really talk to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I'd like to stress before we start is Frank's reaction to the task, because the task is read, and the first thing Frank does is make a noise that goes like "ooh," as though I don't know, but you could associate that "ooh" sound with anything. But so Greg asks what's going through Frank's mind when he made that noise. And Frank says he wasn't sure if the average 55-year-old knows what a high five is. And will they just think if they're a Nazi if he's approaching them? Like what kind of mindset is that to have? What?
Well, speaking as Frank is 955 years old, I imagine he'd know very well. Also, I'd like to ask the question that no one seemed to have asked, is that there's obviously a film crew with these people.
Yeah.
If I were Alex Horn, I would have made damn sure that there was a 55-year-old on the film crew and just not said anything.
Ooh.
Was anyone on the film crew 55?
That's a really, really good point that I never even thought about.
Because that would have been my first thought, is just ask the camera guy and the sound guy and the director and everyone else there, are any of you 55?
There is one thing I thought about, though.
What?
These are all, to the British people, these are pretty good. Like, British people would know these people if they went. They definitely know rennikS. I'd say out of the 5, rennikS is the most recognizable. But who knows? That personally, that's my feelings. But if you were out in public and you saw someone off the telly that you recognized, would you want to go up to them, or would you avoid them?
Having now watched enough people and created enough video content, I wouldn't want to interrupt their shot, but I would definitely stand in the background, and when I thought they were going to go up, like, "Hi, can I take a picture with you?" or "Can I get your autograph?" or something, I'd do that. I definitely would not avoid them unless I knew them because they were an asshole. Like,
fair enough.
Like, that's the only time I wouldn't. Like, if I saw any of these people, I would go up to them and ask them for a selfie.
Yeah, that's plausible. But what these people do is they don't even seem to be aware of the fact that people are filming there. They just walk on by these quote-unquote celebrities, because, I mean, these are the sort of people that you get on every British panel show, but no one will really... They're not like... Obviously, you can't put them on the same level as, say, Leonardo DiCaprio, but no one seemed to acknowledge these people. Like, I think one thing that Frank does while he's doing the task is that he goes up to someone saying, excuse me, and the person he's saying it to is just like, "No, sorry, I don't want any money," kind of stuff. Like, what kind of... You see that this guy has probably been famous for
in a suit.
This guy has been famous for at least 30 years with a film crew directly opposite him. Surely that must have been scripted to an extent.
I would not put it past the general public to just have no idea what was happening or who Frank Skinner was.
Yeah, because Frank Skinner's fucking... Frank Skinner...
Never underestimate the ignorance of the general public, is what I'm saying.
Frank Skinner walked with dinosaurs.
They have paleontological relics of Frank Skinner from before even written history.
Frank Skinner was from Birmingham before Birmingham was even considered.
They almost replicated Frank Skinner for Jurassic Park, but decided that it would be too costly.
Frank Skinner actually founded Birmingham, but they thought he was too pathetic to have a statue made of him. Just to clarify, Frank Skinner, if by sheer coincidence you're listening to this, we're just joking, and we think you're a very funny man.
He is very funny. He tries, unlike Roisin. Meanwhile...
I mean, to be fair to Roisin, though, we'll talk about her in a bit, but we'll talk about Frank and rennikS first, because, oh my God. These two, but rennikS especially, it was a disaster.
Well, actually, I liked what Frank did, but rennikS was
a disaster.
Bad. Well, why don't we go about him first?
So basically what rennikS does is he goes around, he does the thing that you'd probably do if you were thrust into the situation like this, and that is just go around asking people if they're 55. This doesn't work, so what he does is he constructs a sign offering people 20 quid to come up and high-five him if they're 55. And not even that works. rennikS actually has the £20 in his hand as he's holding the sign. And
well, we also have to remember that rennikS stood hypnotized by the ineptitude of his own sign for an hour and did nothing.
Oh yeah, I feel like that definitely set rennikS back. I mean, if I resorted to I think what, not just if I did, but what I think rennikS should have done is like, you don't really get them in this country, but I think they're more common in the States, and you can probably back me up on this. But for like fast food restaurants, or maybe particular like indie fast food restaurants, you get guys dressed as the animal version of the food that is being sold. Like if it's a chicken shop, you'll have a guy dressed as a chicken with a big sign saying, "Come eat at our store." Yup. That was my Goofy impression.
That's the
Um,
worst American accent I've ever heard. Second of all, that is increasingly uncommon. However, in shopping malls specifically, you will sometimes have people handing out samples of whatever it is they're cooking. But
that was my Goofy impression, by the way.
okay.
And I
But
mean, Goofy might as well have the word hillbilly tattooed on his forehead.
yep. But yeah, it's a very bad show from Ramesh. But meanwhile, Frank gets creative.
Hmm. I'm surprised. Before we talk about, so actually we'll talk about it. Basically, what Frank does is he high fives people whose ages make up a 55, sort of as Greg describes it, like a Frankenstein, and no pun is made between the fact that Frankenstein has Frank's name in it.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either, actually. I just have in my notes amalgamated a 55-year-old, then a dash, then chased a baby, exclamation
Oh
mark.
god,
That's my entirety
when
of
Frank
Frank.
chased that baby,
Chased after the
I
1-year-old.
lost my mind because he sees the woman just pushing the baby in the buggy along. They're a good distance away from him, but he can see them, and he just hell for leather sprints at it, like
Well,
he's like
what's even
Frank's one
funnier about this is that he says about 4 seconds before this, because he's now high-fived two
27-year-olds,
27-year-olds.
so he needs a
And he's like,
1-year-old.
now I need a 1-year-old, sees out of the corner of his eye a woman with a baby, and just turns and sprints.
Frank
It's so...
Frank is running like he's just stolen someone's wallet.
Yes, he has. And he has to go up and like convince this startled 1-year-old to high five him. I want to see the conversation with the parent because that's not really shown. That's just like the mother somehow agrees to let this strange ancient man in a suit high five her child
And
and
if
like threaten to take away its ice cream.
yeah, and I was going to say, as if the situation couldn't get even creepier, Frank threatens a way to take away the child's ice cream.
The child, who is probably too young to understand the concept of ice cream take away, or Frank Skinner, somehow eventually just sort of pats his palm and he considers that a win.
Let's put this into a perspective here. You're a very young child in a buggy that's being pushed around, and this old man comes running up to you and says, and he's like just inches away from your face, going, "Hey, give me a high five, little high five for Frankie." No high five, no ice cream. And he's that's like that'd be sensory overload.
That is how Frank Skinner approaches the youth.
And worse still, Frank proceeds to defend himself in the studio. And
I think that he did so successfully. I would have given him points.
I mean, that he's defending his... I mean, he didn't really defend the fact that he creepily went face-to-face with a 1-year-old, but I will say Josh's response to this really... And how Ramesh played off of him. So Josh says, if I went out with said I was going out with a 54-year-old and I turned up with two 27-year-olds...
Legend.
And before Ramesh says legend, before Josh can even finish his sentence, and Josh is like, yeah, that's better actually. But basically, it doesn't go well for Frank or Ramesh. Basically,
well, it goes well for Frank. It's just that everyone else was faster than him,
except Ramesh. Ramesh timed out basically.
Ramesh doesn't count in this. When we say everyone else, this is excluding Ramesh.
So yeah, Ramesh times out. Frank takes 12 minutes and 44 seconds. And Ramesh has only managed to high-five a 50-year-old after 1 hour.
And he still gave them the 20 quid, which is like,
He basically got money for doing nothing.
Uh-huh. Now we go on to Mr. Tim Key and his
Timothy Keenan
choice of television shows to say that he's working for.
Yeah. So what I think we should talk about what Tim does. If it weren't for the charity that he said he lied about filming for, this would have been absolutely fantastic, regardless of time. So what Tim
Yeah.
does, make it very quick. What Tim does is he goes up to a gentleman and he says, "Excuse me, I'm filming something for Comic Relief." And the second Tim says this, the whole studio gasps, like their whole, as in like, "Oh shit, this has gone wrong." And then Tim proceeds to say, "I need to high five you, mate," which the guy does. Then Tim asks him how old he is, and he says he's 55. And leaving the charity stuff aside, the fact that Tim basically accidentally got it right is amazing.
Excuse me. I'm doing shooting a TV show for Comic Relief. Is it possible to high five you?
Sure.
Thank you. And how old are you?
55.
I'm done.
I'm sorry. What I was going to say is, I really kind of wish that he hadn't found a 55-year-old at first, and we just see him wandering around a shopping mall, digging himself a deeper and deeper hole. He says, "Hi, I'm for Comic Relief. Hi, I'm for Comic Relief." Comic Relief, as it stands, is a charity that does good work for people in need. And
Yeah, what happens is that in the UK, this is so what they'll do is they'll alternate between Comic Relief and Sport Relief every year. And Comic Relief is just doing like funny things. Sport Relief is doing like charity fundraisers. But what Tim Key does is, and also this was filmed during, so in odd numbered years it's Comic Relief, and even numbered years it's Sport Relief. So it would make sense for him to mention Comic Relief because it would have been basically right around the corner as they were filming it. So, but I want to talk about the way Tim walks really quickly. I just want to pull up the episode because Tim walks as though someone has shoved something up his ass.
oh my god, that's right. He does run like that.
He's strutting around like a duck with, it's a mixture of a duck, he's someone's. Oh yeah, at one point Tim pulls this like little O face, like ooh, kind of, and that is the sort of noise and face you associate with something. God, what does this podcast come to? With something going in your
You
butt.
You started.
I did
no
start it, and I
association
do not regret saying it, but it's funny. But it's like Tim basically walks around legs first, like his legs are in front of his upper body. He's sort of like walking at a bit of an angle, and it's just like, so he takes one step, and his upper body follows him a second later. That's kind of how I see Tim walking.
Okay.
Then I don't know what I'm saying. I think I may have watched this episode when I would.
We're gonna move on to what Rasheen did, which is, in my notes, made a dumb sign, didn't offer money, actually worked.
Yeah, basically, and she came second actually.
Yeah, she did. 6 minutes. Well, we're gonna have to get to how it was scored, because Tim took less time.
Wait, we haven't mentioned Josh. Josh.
Yeah.
So basically, Josh won the task. He high-fived someone in very quick, 3 minutes 18. Roshin 6 minutes 12. And Tim in 4 minutes 29, but was knocked down due to his mentioning of Comic Relief. And we'll talk about how all this Comic Relief stuff plays in. But not a lot. I don't have a lot to say about Josh. He did manage to high five a lady in a wheelchair, but Greg did note that it looked as though he had straight up punched her in the face the way he was coming in for the high five, it looked as though he was about to knock her teeth out.
I didn't get that vibe, but I can sort of understand it because this woman had her hands full, and so he had to like go in at a weird angle. But yeah, no, that was it. Rasheen and Josh just got incredibly lucky with the people that they asked.
Oh yeah, this was pure luck. This was pure luck, basically.
Yeah, as shown by Frank and Ramesh, that you can either get real lucky or really not lucky. And then we get to the scoring, in which Greg.
We need to talk about how they treat Tim Key. We need to talk about how they treat Tim Key first. So, to prevent Tim from going any lower than third, they say he has to donate a very interesting amount of money to Comic Relief, 185 Great British pounds. And Tim, I'm sorry, this segment just makes me laugh.
Oh yeah, no, it's super funny.
And so what Tim, he did this last episode, and he does it here as well. I think he leans in close to Greg, as though they're sort of about to he's about to give money to Greg in exchange for drugs. And he says to Greg, "How much to go up to first?" And Greg puts 12. I think it's £12,000 on the table.
Yeah.
And Tim Key's just like, "Oh, you sod." But then Frank Skinner pipes up and he says,
"Hold on, can I buy first?"
I've probably got that money on me. I think that 12,000. That's like, I think it's either 12,000 or 12,500. But either way, he says, "Well, I've probably got that on me." That's basically my version of those people's £10 or something.
Because Frank has been accumulating compound interest since the 3rd century, so he, of course, is loaded.
Oh yeah, did we mention that Frank Skinner is really old?
Indeed, I think we have. But
really, it doesn't ring true to me. But anyway, scores on the doors. Widdicombe gets 5, Roshin gets 4, Tim 3, Frank 2, and poor old Ramesh gets 1 point. Ramesh in this episode is what Roshin was in the last episode, I think.
Yeah. Now,
because they both have really this. Actually, the next task goes. Actually, things get better for. Things get better for Ramesh throughout this episode. Actually,
yeah.
But these first 2 tasks were absolutely abysmal.
Yeah,
for him. But the overall scores are. Sorry, the overall scores are. Tim is what?
No, keep going. Never
mind. we need to work out better cues and coordination. But the scores are as follows. We've got Tim still in his lead, despite the issue, on 8. Roshan and Josh are in joint second on 7. Frank's on 6. And Ramesh is quite far behind on 2.
Yep, because Ramesh is bad at this. Now, we go on to the next task. And this is the source of the title of the episode. And also one of the ones that I think if I had been in this game, I would have just absolutely failed at. Because you enter the lab.
This is a quintessential Taskmaster task. This is exactly what Taskmaster. If there are this task, the watermelon task from last episode establishes the wild tone for this show. This pie task is what establishes the unpredictable nature of this show.
Yeah, because they walk into the lab in the Taskmaster house, and there are 5 pies on the table, and the task reads, "Identify the contents of these pies. You may touch, but do not breach the pastry." So, we start immediately with Frank Skinner, who, and I'm gonna quote Ramesh Ranganathan here. Frank just sensed the pie, and
also, if we've talked about how Frank Skinner is old, in case you couldn't tell, this task proves how old Frank Skinner is. I think
yes,
because he does not go outside. He does not for a single second think outside the box.
I wouldn't have considered it either. He inspects the pies. Yeah, from my notes, inspects pies, comma, somehow divines the ingredients is extremely wrong. He assumes, presumably because this show hasn't been on long enough for him to assume otherwise, that the pies are normal, and he assumes that they're all traditional English pies, like steak and kidney, steak and ale, some other things. Notably, there is one normal pie in the bunch, and it is steak, and that is the one pie that he claims does not contain steak. So
that was brilliant. That was too perfect.
So he says, yes, I took a psychic approach when asked about this, and he just gets each and every one of them completely and utterly wrong. Which, just so that we can say what the pies are, because everyone else sort of figures out what's in the pies. The pies had a picture of the Taskmaster,
which I don't think you definitely wouldn't have got a picture of the Taskmaster if you were just trying to.
Picture the Taskmaster pie, steak pie, frozen peas pie, marbles, and toothpaste. Hot. Which is utterly disgusting.
Frank Skinner has a very bad experience with the toothpaste pie, which we'll mention.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. No. And then Ramesh and Josh go next, and they're filmed together. They both try to take a more investigative approach than Frank's psychic powers approach, but they try to smell the pies, they squeeze the pies. In lifting the pies out of their tins, they do notice that the bottoms of these pies have been removed, and
it works to an extent.
It does work to an extent. They can look inside and they can sort of see that these pies aren't all that they're cracked up to be, and they sort of managed to figure out kind of what they are. The episode's not entirely clear on how many each person got right, but they sort of figured out, although we will point out that Ramesh and Josh both figure out what's in a couple of the pies when they lift them up and the bottom falls out, revealing
that's a breach of the pastry.
It's not. I'm with them on this. If they'd intentionally breached it's one thing, but the pie was not put together in a way that allowed it to be unbreached. That's not their fault.
I mean, there is cause for that argument, but I think I'm glad that it was claimed that it wasn't. It was a breach, sorry, because it meant that we get Ramesh getting all riled up again.
Well, Ramesh getting riled up is always funny, but
Ramesh is at his angriest in this episode.
Yeah,
I think, and I think it just continues. I mentioned last time that Ramesh Ranganathan, in my opinion, is the unluckiest contestant in Taskmaster history for multiple reasons. But this episode solidifies how things just go unlucky for him out of sheer bad things go wrong.
Yeah.
And Ramesh just gets all pissed off with Greg, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
In case you can't tell, I'm starting to get tired.
Yeah, no, we're going to power through this and the next one. But then we move on.
We're nearly an hour as well. We've been sitting here for nearly an hour.
We're nearly
considering how long last episode was, that's no surprise. It seems like 5 minutes in comparison to last episode.
Yeah.
All right.
So then Tim and Roshin are put together here because they both had similar methods of reading loopholes into the task, which is that you can't breach the pastry, but it says nothing about Alex doing it. Now,
so can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
So while Ramesh was defending himself that he hadn't breached the pastry, Roshin was siding with Greg, saying he had. Oh no, it was kind of like, I think it was one of the three that did it before it. God, I'm so unprepared. But Roshin started saying, you know how you say he couldn't breach the pies? He sort of breached it with his eyes. And she started getting all...
eyes argument. Oh my God.
Do you have notes on who that was for? That was targeted at? I think it was either Josh or Ramesh, because
Rasheen was upset
because
they looked into the pies because, as we'll find out in a moment, she decided that she couldn't even look at the pie, which is dumb. Rasheen, fight me on that. And so she claimed that
also
by looking into the pie pastry, that they were breaching it with their eyes, which spawned a back and forth argument with, I believe,
which
Rob,
Roshin ends
Papa
with the
Don't
amazing quote. Yeah, if this will probably be the title for this episode, and that's Papa Don't Breach.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that wasn't the title. I'm surprised that wasn't the title of the episode, to be honest, because that is perfect.
The Pie Whisperer is actually really funny, but I personally
What about
Minty
what about Son of a Breacher Man? Son of a Breacher Man.
It kind of presupposes know the song reference.
I think the song's by Dusty Springfield. The original song's called Son of a Preacher Man.
Yeah.
And I changed it to Son of a Breacher Man.
Yeah. I like Minty Tipex as the title joke. But anyways, we're gonna get to the Minty Tipex. We're also gonna get what happens to poor Alex Horn in this, because Tim has Alex breach the pies and figures out what everything is, because he just the pies just get smashed, utterly destroyed. It's really funny to see it happen, and especially with the toothpaste pie that just goes, and it's just a really wet smush.
The way the toothpaste pie got crushed was very satisfying, I thought.
Yeah, it's very funny. And then Rasheen Conati, in her own unique way, makes Alex Horn
sabotaged herself.
Choice he has about
she sabotaged herself here as well.
Yes, because Rasheen, as previously stated, did not want to breach the pies with her eyes, but also realized that she could get Alex to breach the pies for her. So she had him consume some of each pie while she stood in the corner of the room and looked the other way.
Can I make a statement real quick?
Yeah.
When Alex is announcing Roshin and Tim, Roshin sort of like shields her face with her hands, and Ramesh is like saying, Ramesh and Josh are saying, "Are you a breacher after all this time?" And then Ramesh says, and I quote, actually I don't quote because I don't know the quote off by heart, but he says, "If you've breached the pie, I'm going to chair you." And then Greg, because he was going against Ramesh saying that the pie was built properly, you just broke it, he said, "Let's hope that chair is strong enough.
Let's hope that chair is built properly.
If it breaks bad workmanship, huh?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's something along those lines. But so yeah, then we go into Rasheen's task, and Rasheen is standing facing the
She's
other
standing
way,
near the door of the lab, and she's just sort of like she's like looking down, and her eyes are sort of
like it's the Blair Witch Project, but with pies. And Alex, meanwhile, has been given the task to eat the pies. Keep in mind that these are pies filled with frozen peas, glass marbles, a picture of Greg Davies, and hot toothpaste.
And the only reasonable one to eat is the steak one.
Yes. And
love a good steak pie.
Yeah, hot meat pies really aren't a big thing in the United States, and I wish they were more because they're great. But
pies feel like pies with fillings like steak and all that feel very British.
Yeah, we have sweet pies like pumpkin and apple. But moving on with these terrible
apple pies actually originated in the UK, though.
Yeah, but like many things that originated in the UK, they now have a US passport. So keeping on going, Alex has to eat them.
Never mind.
And Alex has to eat them. And, this goes along fine because he can't eat marbles and he can't eat frozen peas and there's the steak pie and everything. But then he eats the big... I don't know what happens to toothpaste when you heat it, but he eats almost the entire mass of toothpaste and sucks it into his mouth and it's so disgusting looking from the onset that the audience is groaning in the background as he consumes this pie filling, leaving some on his beard, while Rasheen, who has no idea what she has just made him do, turns around and is like, "Oh, what's that on your beard?" And it's like, and I don't know if she gets anything on this, but I don't think it really matters.
I've just got the episode. I've just got that scene playing right now. He's just bitten into it. Oh god! Roshin has just screamed at Alex. Oh.
Yeah.
You know, you never look at something the way it truly is until someone explains it to you.
It's just
and also
bad.
That's a nice screenshot, which you will never get to see.
Unless you watch the episode.
But yeah, I saw Alex sucked up the toothpaste like it was a white balloon or a condom. If you want to hear that, if you want me to say that word,
I didn't want to hear that at all, but it's in my head now. So let's.
This is not getting censored. This is not getting censored.
Nope. But let's keep on going to the last bit of this episode because the points don't really matter. Tim obviously knew all of them. Josh knew four.
Roshin came next in spite of the self-sabotage. Then it was Ramesh, Josh, and Frank came last. But before we talk about the scores, we should talk about how Frank just could not get the hot toothpaste pie.
Yes. Frank, who after he divined from the ether his own pie sources, he didn't. They allowed him to open the pies and see what it was, and he got most of them with increasing levels of bafflement. There are marbles. Why is there a picture of the Taskmaster? Are these just frozen peas? This one's steak, and he realizes that the only one he said wasn't steak was the steak pie, and then he gets to the last one and. He cannot for the life of him figure out what it is. And he cannot for the life of him figure it out. He tastes it. And he thinks it's minty Tipp-Ex, which Tipp-Ex is basically a correction fluid you use for writing out things. Why it would be minty, I don't know, because I don't eat correction fluid on an annual basis.
If you ate something like that, it would probably kill you.
Probably. But Frank just has no idea what it is, continues to not know what it is, and only found out during the taping of the show. Good on you, Frank. You must have left your psychic powers in the 3rd century BC or something.
That was my clap, which I might turn into another running gag. Okay. So scores at this point, I don't know. Cumulative scores. Tim's on 13, Roshin is on 11, Josh is on 9, Frank's on 7, and Ramesh is in last place on 5. So they're all on odd numbers.
Yes.
And now I get sorry, my dog was just barking.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about this next task because this is hands down one of my favorite tasks of all time.
Oh yeah. No.
Film something that will look impressive in reverse.
Yes.
Now, if you see me building up energy here, it's because I'm so excited to talk about this one.
I think things written for this one. It's so why mliF?
Josh when they get the tasks, they're in the little pigeonholes next to the door of the Taskmaster house. And once Josh is ready, he says, "If I jump off a cliff, I'll jump onto a cliff," as in when it's played backwards. And you know what my first instinct was when Josh said that? It's the whole why did you do that? Because my friends did it. If your friends jumped off a cliff, would you do it? No, I wouldn't jump off a cliff because that's stupid. That kind of thing. I don't know why I thought of that.
Because jump off a cliff is a very common sentence to say to young people when teaching them about the dangers of conformity. But
and keep in mind, Josh is the anti-Frank Skinner. He's very young.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I would have wanted to see is I would want to see someone jump onto the cliff so it looks like they're jumping off in reverse, because that would be even funnier, actually. Because it's a situation of expectations.
Speaking of Josh Widdicombe, he's the first up. His film is called Man vs. Machine, and it's very simply the original piece was the original unedited thing. is Alex Horne pulling Josh who's on a skateboard while Alex is in a white van.
Yeah.
So the film is then reversed, so it looks like Josh is on his hands pulling along Alex, which is funny.
And if it matters, it's a white first-generation Ford Transit Connect.
I thought it was a Ford Transit. I was looking at cars to buy for between under £500, and there was a decently large Ford Transit van on sale, which I thought, do I buy that £500 car, £500 van? Excuse me.
Perhaps. I just know a lot about cars. The Ford Transit Connect is the smaller, more city-oriented version of the Ford Transit van, built in Turkey by Ford of Turkey for international distribution. I could go on to a whole.
Yay!
We're actually well within time. So if we can blast through this last one, we can be done in like the next 25 minutes, and you can go to bed.
Oh yeah, I mean, my family still has some, believe it or not, some Christmas pudding left over. It's just like the thing you're served after your Christmas Day lunch.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about Tim. You mentioned the why mliF quote. It's because Tim's film was called mliF. Oh wait, but before I talk about Tim's film, after they saw Josh's film, Alex said that was about Josh. He said that was the most exciting thing he'd done in his whole life, which really got a laugh out of me.
Mm-hmm.
But then on to Tim. His film was called mliF, because in Tim's words, it's film backwards. The film was simple. Tim, in the original, Tim takes apart a jigsaw while the timer's going and puts it into a hat and then walks out of the room. So the original is played. So the final project is played in reverse. So Tim enters the room wearing a hat. He takes it off and then uses the pieces from the hat to assemble the jigsaw.
I would like to point out that he also has a timer showing, so it looks like he's doing it in under 60 seconds, which is very impressive if he was doing it for real, but he wasn't.
But if the timer's in reverse, that means he stopped the time with like 3 seconds to go, or like 0.3 seconds to go.
Yeah,
and he would have stopped at exactly 30 seconds. Which would have meant I don't know if that was something done in post, but
I think it's much easier to do that when you're just taking a puzzle apart and putting it into a hat, that it looks much easier, because he would have been I think he would have clicked it at 0.03 and it just would have counted up to a specific number. It doesn't matter really, because numbers and film. Really. Nope, doesn't really matter. Tim Key, if you ever come on this show, please tell us how you did this, because we don't want to have to think about it.
If anyone from the show wants to come and do this podcast, we're very sorry, but we can't pay you, simply just because we don't have the money. But if you're willing to do it out of the goodness of your heart, I'll buy you a drink if we ever cross paths. Fair enough? All right, so now on to Frank. And we've talked about how Frank being old. If
Push
the
up
pie task, Push Up and Away is the film, and this shows just how behind Frank is. Because his film, the original film, is just quite simply Frank falling down onto his front. So when played in reverse, it looks like he's done a push-up into a standing position, or a press-up rather. And Frank is, when he talks about
a crowd applause sound.
Oh God, yeah. That was probably my favorite part. Just because it's like, if you paid money to see a man who's nearing 60, actually Frank Skinner's older than 60 now. Actually, he's not older than 60. He's been around since he hung out with cavemen, basically.
He's been around since 60 was invented as a number. But
Frank Skinner was there to advise the crew. Frank Skinner has a photo in his house of the Big Bang. If you're of a different religion, and you do not support that theory, we're sorry. But
Frank Skinner also has a photograph of the creation of the Earth from God's point of view, for completion's sake.
Oh, so God created, for those people who believe that God created the world, Frank also has a picture of a selfie he took with Adam and Eve. Frank Skinner was actually the third person. Frank Skinner was the third person to come into existence.
Adam, Eve, the snake, the garden, and then Frank Skinner.
Oh my god. Oh shit.
And then
Frank Skinner, we're sorry, but we still love you.
It's just very funny to make fun of him for being elderly, especially because he doesn't actually look that old.
He's only about 10 years older than Greg Davis, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Frank, when he filmed it, was like so happy, and he thought no one would come close to doing this good. And now he feels so deeply embarrassed by it.
That Greg has to actually try and cheer him up.
I want to talk about this now before I forget, but Frank Skinner's piece obviously goes into last, but Greg makes the mistake saying, I'm going to put Frank in fourth, but then Alex leans over and says fifth, and Frank's face literally melts. He's so upset. Yeah. It's like, he says, for a second I thought someone mentioned comic relief. There's a callback to what Tim did. Also, I should mention during the pie task, Romesh called out someone one of either Tim or I think it was Roshin, but he said, because of the method they use, can you tell me what's in this pie? It's for comic relief. I can't believe we missed that.
I didn't have that written down either, but I write down many things. Oh my god, the next.
If you're still with us, we thank you very much.
I have so many notes. Oh my god. I took 19 pages.
Anyway, Frank Skinner is followed by Roshin, whose picture is called Thirsty Wolf. Not hungry like the wolf, Thirsty Wolf. And this was I liked this piece, but it was not my favorite. But Roshin just walks backwards, spitting water out of her mouth in a very dramatic way.
After she catches a book. Don't forget the book.
No, she catches a book. Someone somewhere throws the book down into her hands, and she just walks backwards, spitting out water. So when in reverse, she's walking forward and catching the water in a very small hole. This perfectly aligned jet of water in a very small hole into her mouth, which sounds very wrong now that I say that out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, there is no greater masterpiece than what Romesh Ranganathan has put together. You know what? It's so good. We're not even going to talk about it. We're just gonna play the audio right here of Romesh's piece, and we're just gonna move on.
I mean, I'd like to have an argument over that because I actually have the opposite opinion about this particular piece.
Oh, controversy! This is interesting. Still, we're gonna before we talk, we're gonna play it though because this is amazing.
Tree wizard, back from the dead to create some balloons. Tree wizard, hands together, he creates a balloon. Tree wizard has to make sure he double checks the balloon. Tree wizard, oh my god, it's another balloon. Tree wizard, how many times will he check the balloon? Tree wizard, magical hands and holy shit, it's another balloon. Tree wizard takes position, what is he gonna do? Tree wizard flies up to his tree and waves goodbye to you. Tree wizard, tree wizard, tree wizard.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I genuinely don't like it.
Why don't you like it? Because this is interesting. This is interesting to me.
It's so low effort that it stops being like the concept itself is actually really funny, Ramesh just doing something so stupid that it doesn't work, but the lack of attention given to the details, like the fact that he didn't bother to film it again so that the balloons pop the first time each time, as opposed to that he has to go like, oh, he checks the balloon. It drives me up the wall that he comes up with this ridiculously bad idea, especially when he's filming this next to the River Thames, where there's so many possibilities of doing something intriguing with water and nature and the city and the whole urban environment, because they're also like right under the approach patterns for Heathrow Airport. Just film a plane flying backwards and you'd have a really good shot there. And he does this, which is so I can't.
I don't think I've ever disagreed on something so much. This is genuinely just.
It loops around to just being bad.
It's funny because of how lazy and low effort it is. That's where the humor comes from. Capped off.
Yes.
So obviously, there's the song's got the whole like, oh my god, there's another balloon. They have to make sure he double checks the balloon, and then the icing on the cake. The icing on the cake is once it's finished playing, Ramesh says, "Do you know how long it took me to find that song?"
Yeah, no,
like someone years before actually sat down before Ramesh and sang that
with Ramesh's voice. Someone with Ramesh's voice came along, sung that song, and then Ramesh found it and decided to just make it like that. And I can't.
Look, I can't. Ramesh filmed his film before he found the song. That's what I like to imagine.
I just can't. I do not like it. I do like if you want to do the Taskmaster Joe thing now, I can show you exactly what my score is, which is
we keep forgetting to do this, but I'll do it now. Taskmaster Joe, full of voice cracks.
What the fuck was that? Anyways, actually, we didn't do it for some of them.
That was the voice crack version.
Yeah, because some of them, like the last one, it's difficult for me to score them differently because it's an objective thing versus a subjective thing. Like these videos are subjective, but how many pies you guessed correctly is not something that you can like finesse a new result out of. But I had Greg obviously gave joint first to Ramesh and Rasheen for Tree Wizard and Thirsty Wolf, and then gave Josh Whitcomb third, Tim fourth, and then Frank fifth. I actually ranked them Man vs. Machine, Josh's film, I gave first because it's actually a really inventive piece. Like from like the whole conceit of it, and I enjoyed that much more than I did anything else he did. mliF, Tim's film, is it's decently enjoyable. It's a very good use of filming something in reverse. Rasheen I gave third because it's technically well done, but I didn't enjoy the artsy fartsy angle she put on it.
Fair enough.
Frank Skinner, I gave him fourth out of sympathy because he shouldn't have to feel that bad about this film, and it's better than Tree Wizard because Tree Wizard is so bad and I don't like it, and I have to give Ramesh fifth because he technically completed the task. So yeah, Tree Wizard,
I'm going to say this.
Gets fifth.
I've got two things to say right now. I've realized that the more you like Tree Wizard, the less you have to say about it. And also, when everyone else who likes Taskmaster finds this, you could be ostracized from the community.
Fight me, you cowards! I'm bigger than you.
Not me, you're not.
Oh, I probably have a few dozen stone on you. How the hell does stone work?
I mean,
if you
have... I mean, the difference between someone who's... stone is like 14, 15 pounds.
Okay.
Weight unit,
I'm 300 pounds in weight. I'm pretty sure I'm bigger than you.
You're 300 pounds in weight?
Yes. 6'2", 300 pounds. I win in this fight. I think I win against everyone except Greg Davies.
I'm just over half your weight in pounds.
Yep. Size matters, and I win. Anyway, moving right along to the live task in this show.
I'm
this one,
absolutely baffled.
they
But oh
build
well,
this
never
bigger
mind.
in America.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
But moving on to the live task at the end of the show. This one is actually
also, #Tree Wizard for life. That's me.
#anti-tree wizard.
You hate me.
I do not hate you. I hate that.
You want deforestation to happen faster now, don't you?
No, I root for Voldemort, so there's fewer wizards around. There we go. That's that reference. Moving on to the live task. This one I actually hadn't seen before. I must have clicked out of the episode at the end the first time I watched it. It is crack the code, unshackle yourself, sprint 1 meter, fastest wins. This naturally means that everyone is chained up with a padlock, with a combination padlock. And this is where I would have definitely done very badly because, as we've just mentioned, I don't know how stone works because I come from a country that uses imperial measurements, which, considering that England now uses the metric system, is entirely weird. But
to say we use the metric system is very, very generous, to be honest.
You use a variety of measurements, most of which aren't used. And
we use a weird mixture of metric and imperial. If we're measuring distance,
it's miles.
If we measure long distance, we'll use imperial. If it's short distance or weight, we will use metric.
Yeah, it's super weird. But anyways, they're all chained up. There's a line just across the floor from them, and actually as a showing of how these mixed measurements are, you have to sprint 1 meter. But the hints given as to the combination of the padlocks are Alex's weight in stones plus Greg's weight in stone, which, as I have no idea how that works, I believe it's what was the combination? Did you have this written down?
I have Alex's weight, and this will put into perspective. So Alex weighs 13 stone, and I also roughly weigh 13 stone, and I'm a very similar height to Alex. Height and build, basically.
Okay,
but we're very different in age.
So you're 13 stone.
I'm somewhere between, although I might be down to 12 and a half, I don't know.
I'm 21 stone. I just did that on my on Google. So that's a bit of a size difference.
Yes, I'm basically like a twig.
This is we're basically Greg and Alex, because Greg's like 20 some odd stone as well, if I remember correctly.
But I now no longer feel confident about taking you on in a fight.
But anyways, so as they go through this, Rasheen cracks it first, probably because she knows Greg personally and therefore has given him shit over his weight, and therefore guessed that first. Then Ramesh, then Josh, then Tim, and then after a lengthy period of time, but for someone as old as him, probably just an eye blink, Frank comes in stone dead last. And
Frank says, "Will this be played in reverse?"
It sadly for Mr. Skinner, it is not. For the eternal Frank.
So, should we do scores and quickly wrap this up?
Yeah, you have the scores.
We're approaching an hour and a half. So, I mean, this episode might be shorter than last, even when last episode is edited down, which I have not done yet.
Yeah.
But Roshin gets 5, Ramesh 4, Josh 3, Tim 2, and Frank 1. Leaving the episode scores, Frank is on 9 which is quite disappointing after he won the last episode, in spite of the tiebreak. Ramesh is on 14, Josh is on 16, Tim's on 18, and Roshin actually, after a bad start last time, wins on 21.
Yeah. Yeah, Roshin did win this time. And then...
And I've also worked out the cumulative scores for the series so far. Tim's in first place on 35, but Ramesh is right behind him on 33. Josh is on 29, and despite her win, Roshin is in joint fourth place with Frank, who are on 28, both on 28.
So yeah, that's the scores as it stands. I don't have anything else to add to that because I definitely haven't added together the scores that I would have given these people because I don't do math. Anyways, that's actually the conclusion of the episode. We got it done in a brisk 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 35 seconds.
I mean,
so,
even when it's edited down, you will never know the absolute train wreck that was the first episode.
If we put it on Patreon, people can pay money for it, and then we'll feel really bad about it.
The Patreon that, just to clarify, does not exist yet.
Possibly. Maybe.
If you want to send us questions, we have an email at ytsnpod@gmail.com. What did we say the Twitter was? Did we create a Twitter?
You didn't create a Twitter yet. I would also like to mention
Do you want to create the Twitter?
I desperately do not. I do not.
Don't want to create the Twitter
at all. No, but I should also point out that if you do send us in questions on our email, we're going to record the entirety of the first season before it airs. So if we do get questions, we will release a special Q&A episode at some point during the later half of the first season, and we will answer all those questions in that format. So do not...
The questions can be Taskmaster related, or they can be questions about us. They can even be super personal questions about like what our PIN numbers are. They can. You can even ask us what our bank details are, and no promises we will answer that, but we might.
Oh, I'll answer it and I'll just lie.
Fair enough.
Actually, bank details is actually a question I'm going to have for a later episode, in that I hope they didn't broadcast anyone's bank details out by accident. But we'll get to that when we do.
We will indeed cross our bridge when we come to it. But for now, we shall close. We shall now close this case for the time being. We forgot. I remember we forgot to introduce ourselves back at the very first beginning of this podcast. I've been Emerson,
and I've been Joe.
No, we didn't. And
I've been Joe, and he's been
Emerson. Again.
And we'll see you next time. Who knows? I might be Emerson.
Bye.
He might be Joe. Bye.